FC26 is just released, and with that, of course, career mode. But for those of you who are bored of taking charge of clubs like Man United, PSG, or Borussia Dortmund, I went out and found the 5 hardest saves you can do on FC26. So let me know if you'll end up doing any of these in the comments, and let's get started with the 5th hardest save in FC26, which is Elche from La Liga. Now, Elche is a hard career mode for a number of reasons, but to start off with, you are playing with the weakest team in La Liga, with Elche being one of 5 clubs in the Spanish First Division who don't have a 4-star rating or higher. But the thing that makes Elche's squad so tough to manage is the fact that a number of your best players are actually loan players, such as Iñaki Peña, who will likely be your starting goalkeeper in the first season. He's on loan from Barcelona. Pedrosa, who's by far the best left back at the club, is also on loan. He's come over from Sevilla. And the most promising youngster in your team, Hector Fort, is once again a loan player from Barcelona. Now, in the case of Hector Fort, you might say just buy him since he's probably going to be cheap at that rating. But another thing that makes Elche so tough as a career mode is the fact that you're in the Spanish top division with just 2 million as your budget. And all of that while you're competing against some of the best teams in the world like Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Atletico Madrid, who can spend up to 50 times as much as you can. Apart from Hector Fort, the only other exciting youngster is Alvaro Rodriguez, who looks like a decent striker to start with and can probably be good backup for you to Andre Silva. But he himself, he's 20 years old. He can also play off the left. Doesn't have the best stats, but with 84 potential, there's definitely room for growth here. Now, should you take on this career mode, your goal for the first season should be, like the game says, to avoid relegation. But I think as a 5-year project, it could be really fun to try and win Elche their first ever major trophy, because they've never won one. You're going to have to be clever in the market with that small of a budget, especially in your first season. But like I said, as a 5 to 6 season project, Elche is a great save to do. But with that, let's move on to the 4th hardest save on FC26, which is Manchester City. Now, I know what you're going to say. This is actually one of the easiest saves on the game, but we're going to give it our own little twist. Because what you're going to do is swap Manchester City with one of the teams that got relegated from the Premier League last season. I'll just pick Leicester for this example. And you're then going to do a City charged with the 115 career mode. Now, obviously, you could do this in previous years, but this year, for the first time, you can actually give yourself a point deduction as well. Now, you can pick 3, 5, 10, 15, or a 20-point deduction. But if you want to make it as challenging as possible, just go ahead and take 20 points. Now, the thing about this career mode is it will only be challenging if you stick to the following 3 rules. Rule number 1, you have to release everyone in the squad who is higher than 77 rated. And just so that your squad doesn't get too small and you actually have a normal championship squad, you can go ahead and recall all of these lower rated loans. Rule number 2, for transfers, you are only allowed a maximum £20 million net spend per season. That means that if you want to spend more than £20 million to buy players, you're going to have to sell players first. Now, on console, obviously, you won't be able to adjust your budget, so you're going to have to stick to that yourself because your budget is going to be higher than 20 million. But if you're playing on PC, once the mods come out, you can mod your budget to whatever you want, like 20 million for this challenge. And rule number 3, you have to win the Premier League within 5 seasons. That means that you have 5 seasons to take this squad and turn them back into a Premier League contender within the transfer rules of the save. Now, the fun thing about this is that you do actually have a couple very good youngsters, such as Cabore, O'Reilly, Oscar Bob, Echeverry, all at your disposal. So you can choose to build the club up with them or sell them and get players of your own, giving this save infinite possibility. And if you did want to make it even a little bit harder, you could even release Kusanov and Lewis. Your squad would still be big enough and it would make the save just that little bit harder. But enough about Man City. Let's move on to the 3rd hardest save in FC26, which is Telstar in the Dutch Eredivisie. Telstar is actually a new addition to FC26 as they got promoted from the Dutch 2nd Division for the first time in their history last season. And since the Dutch 2nd tier isn't in the game, this is the first time this club's ever been in any FIFA or FC game. This does also leave them being the worst Dutch team in the game as they're the only 1.5-star team in the Eredivisie. But in my opinion, the thing that makes this save as hard as it is the squad, because it is absolute poo. I mean, your best player is 67 rated, so there's no 70+ rated players in this squad currently. But there is also no one in this team who has a potential higher than 72, so you don't have any exciting youngsters in here like you do at Elche or Man City. So that 4 million transfer budget, you're going to have to stretch it very, very thinly for some good recruitment. Now, while you're competing against clubs like Ajax, Feyenoord and PSV who all regularly play in the Champions League and have about 10 to 12 times the budget that you do, the Eredivisie is a relatively weak league. So your target for this save will be to win the Eredivisie within 3 seasons. That means that you have 3 seasons to turn a squad of all mid-60 rated players to a squad of all mid-70 rated players at a bare minimum. Should you want to make it that little bit more harder, you can give yourself 5 seasons to win the Champions League. Which genuinely, I don't think I could do. With that starter team, no way. But with that, let's move on to the second hardest save on FC26, which is Accrington Stanley. Now, one big reason for Accrington Stanley being the second hardest save on the game is that they are unfortunately the club which are the worst team in FC26 out of all English clubs, as they are the only English club on FC26 with a half-star rating. And I mean, when you look at the squad, the half-star rating starts to make sense because you've only got a handful of players who are even above 60 rated, with one of those being a 37-year-old, which is Wally, and 2 of them being loan players. With the squad also having no real good youngsters, as Boris is the only good youngster with some decent potential, but he's on loan from Burnley. They also only have £1 million to spend on signings, so you might say go and get yourself some loan players, right? But the thing about FC is that when you're in very low divisions, you can't really get loan deals from the big clubs. So you can't go out and get Man City youngsters because they won't want to join you. But since that's the case, I think your best bet here is doing a youth to glory save. As the club sees their youth facilities as a high priority, what you could do is set up a youth academy in the first season and take youth academy graduates to build up your squad through the leagues. Your target should be to reach the Premier League in 5 seasons. Now that might seem like a stretch, but these are the hardest saves we're talking about. And to win the Premier League itself within 7 seasons and the Champions League within 10 seasons. And I think with that, Accrington Stanley makes for a great challenge and a great potential youth to glory save. But now let's move on to the hardest save on FC26, which is TSV Havelse in the German 3rd tier. Now, looking at the team, you might say this is an easier save than Accrington Stanley. They've got a better team. They're a division higher because they're in the German 3rd tier, whereas Accrington Stanley's in the English 4th tier. But the thing that makes this save so much harder is how good the team is compared to the rest of the country. You see, Accrington Stanley isn't actually that much worse than the teams who are right above them in League 2. Whereas TSV Havelse is one of just 4 1-star teams in the German 3rd tier, with the other 3 all being second teams of Bundesliga clubs, and the gap to the rest of the division is very big. I mean, you're a 1-star team trying to get out of a division when you're playing against clubs like 1860 Munich, who are 2.5 stars. Another thing which makes this save, in my opinion, the toughest save in the entire game is that when you get into Bundesliga 2, you're going to be in for a real shock. Because unlike a jump from League 2 to League 1, which isn't as big, you're jumping straight into a league with mostly 3-star teams and even some 3.5-star teams coming down from the Bundesliga. The squad itself as well is just really, really poor. Quite a few 60 rated, to be fair, compared to Accrington Stanley, but not a single player with more than 72 potential. So you've got no players who are really good at the moment, and you've got no players who are going to grow into being a good player. So you're going to depend on the transfer market, right? Well, you've only got 800,000 to spend. That's barely enough to get a couple loan deals over the line. And even then, just like Accrington Stanley, you won't be able to loan anyone from any top divisions. So with a poor squad, no youth talent, and basically no money, in my opinion, TSV Havelse is the toughest save in FC26. Your target for this save is to reach the top flight in 3 seasons, but genuinely, if you can do that, I'd be impressed. Win the Bundesliga itself in 5 seasons and win the Champions League in 7 seasons. So those were, in my opinion, the 5 toughest saves on FC26. Let me know if you're going to be doing any of these in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.